the record button and hand it over to Wim.
Thank you, Krenar, and a warm welcome from my side as well. My name is Wim Valstar, and I'm part of the Customer Evolution Program in the Center of Excellence for Human Capital Management. I'm joined here today by my colleague Steve Schnoll, who will be monitoring the chat. As Krenar already mentioned, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll try to address them. Steve and I are part of the Customer Evolution Program, just as Krenar, and hopefully you've heard about that. We've been working with our human capital management in on-premise installed base customers for a number of years now, listening to them, what they would need in terms of their cloud journey. And we've been translating that into product requirements, into services, into assets, informations, workshops, all to help answer your questions and ease the migration to the cloud. And today we will be addressing, if you're considering to move to S/4HANA and you are running human capital management in your current on-premise installation, then just looking at it in silos won't solve your problem. But with all the S/4HANA options, there's implications for HR as well. And sometimes our customers get a little bit confused about the pros and cons of the options and where to go. So this webinar wants to focus on that. So before we're doing that, I want to take one step back and look at the SAP strategy, which you've probably heard, but it also has implications for HR. So I'm trying to make a short translation into what that implications would be. Then we're looking at a target map and the considerations, the pros and cons of the different options that might seem to be available to you. And then we're going into how you prepare for the transition. What kind of migration tools are there? What kind of assets and what kind of services to support you along the journey in every step? And then we'll wrap up. And after the wrap up, there's questions and we will also be monitoring, or there's room for questions, and we will also be monitoring the chat to see if anything comes up. So let me start off by taking one step back into the SAP strategy, right? Because if we're looking at human capital management, most of the time the people that are involved in human capital management look at human capital management. But it's part of a bigger suite of products, a broader portfolio of products, and that has, let's say, an increasing impact on HR, the technologies that we're using, the direction that we're going, and that translates into options, but also tools and possibilities on the HR side. Now, we know that if we look at the things that the world around us and the environment is rapidly changing, we see all kinds of geopolitical and market uncertainties. We see the acceleration of artificial intelligence everywhere. We see that the sustainability is a super important element to actually monitor and work with. And we also see that companies cannot work in silos anymore. Now, all of these things happen really, really fast. And we know that, right? From an ERP side, we know that in the flick of a switch, things can change and your whole supply chain will change. But that means that SAP is looking at these developments and also seeing that our customers need to shift strategy to actually accommodate all these developments in the world. So we're looking at embracing AI model, artificial intelligence, we embracing sustainability and bring that to our customers in a timely and fast way, so you can respond to developments that are going on around you, and usually in a very short period of time that you have to react, right? The same goes for the trends in human capital management. We see a lot of factors and trends influencing the innovations in HR. We see the composition of the workforce is changing. We see that the expectations of managers and employees have been changing because of the way they interact with their mobile phones, how they can actually use things in their private environment. But we also see that intelligent and artificial intelligence technologies are on the rise. And it's the hot new thing that is really becoming the new user interface for a lot of people. And it's driving productivity, well, also, let's say, decreasing total cost of ownership and actually providing value and a better experience for everybody in the company. We also see that there's a talent shortage, and we've been talking about it for ages, but it's now very clear and present. And it's not just on the agenda for the HR people in the company. It also got the attention of the broader C-suite. The CFOs are looking at it, how you can upskill and reskill your current workforce to be, to create continuity, business continuity for the years to come, because there is a shortage out there. So why couldn't you just reskill and upskill your current workforce to actually meet the demands of the market? We see that pay and rewards are gradually changing to be, let's say, more customized and not one size fits all. And of course, in the last couple of years, and we've all been exposed to it, there's more and more remote work and hybrid working environments. And that poses really new questions to how we interact with people and a workforce around the globe. Now, these developments and trends have been going on for years, and SAP has been, delivering technologies to meet with the demands of the market over the years. And what you see is that our business suite, the ERP suite, has been growing over the years. And that also goes for HR, because HR has always been part of the ERP business suite, right? And you see that applications were stacked on top of the others to deliver technologies for our customers in a timely way, so they could make use of the best technologies to actually meet market demands. We see the technology stack behind it also growing, but there is an end to that, right? So if you actually look at human capital management, most people are looking at human capital management as this one component. But if you want to, have analytics on top of it, you want to have payroll with it, you want to disclose it through mobile and through your internet, then there's a lot of technological layers that come with that. And that is also increasing your total cost of ownership and the speed that you actually can react to the market with, because all these layers have to be in sync before you can even, start creating new or deploying new features and functions or functionality. And that's where the actual, the shoe kind of starts to, well, let's say, hurt a little bit. And with cloud, we're taking away all these, let's say, technology challenges and to keep them in sync. And we'll take that on, within SAP and provide the software as a service, so you don't have to do it. Now, some of our customers in the last couple of years have said, well, SAP wants us to go to cloud because you bought cloud companies. Well, that's not true. And hopefully I can explain that a little bit better by showing you this. So you've seen the technological depth and what kind of impact it has on the speed and agility to actually respond within your organization. Apart from that little piece that's just SAP Human Capital Management, there's a lot you have to take into account to actually deliver your services. And we've seen this development going on over the years, from, client server systems to the intelligent enterprise, but now with the rise of generative and artificial intelligence, this is the big new thing. And it's just a great thing that we've, as SAP, had the strategic vision for years to invest in public cloud, in cloud solutions, because now we can also deliver on the promise of artificial intelligence. And that's only to say that since this is the strategic direction, cloud is not going to go away. Cloud will have a lot of benefits that you will actually, continuously can consume over the years going forward. So it's not a fling, it's here, it's a very integral part of the SAP strategy. And that, of course, comes into effect if you look at the current 2025 strategy of SAP, where we put artificial intelligence first, and we're looking at the suite from an holistic point of view, because our customers, you, also look at things from an holistic point of view. You need to respond, you need to react to what's happening in the market. And before, SAP was just looking at applications to applications. And then we were always discussing integrations, and the integrations are solid. We've been working on that for ages. But this is basically the foundation for good data. And with good data and the introduction of SAP Business Data Cloud, we can actually, consumerize the data consumption and data management. And with that, we can actually put the data in context and create artificial intelligence across your entire organization, not just from HR, not just from ERP, not just from supply chain, but things interact. Data needs to flow. And where that, let's say, effort was usually, put in the hands of our customers and our partners in an on-premise system, SAP is providing that for you so you can continuously consume innovation. That results in the SAP Business Suite. And you've probably seen this sunrise diagram before, but you can see that human capital management is a very crucial element as one of the line of business solutions that kind of clicks into ERP and the business technology platform to power these end-to-end artificial intelligence powered business processes. So we deliver out of the box and ready to go stuff that you would normally maybe create for yourself, but it would take time, money, and effort to do so. And that's what we don't have. We need to respond fast, us as SAP, but also you as an organization. And we see that, with the business suite, we know that there's like unprecedented challenges for everybody, and I've already touched on that. But HR plays a very fundamental role in that. More than ever, HR is able to help other parts of the business by providing information, right data management, to actually, manage supplier risks, do budget plannings, do profit and loss analysis, and reduce the IT investments because it's all part of this larger system landscape. So HR can be a strategic partner in that, but even if HR is not that, you still need the HR data to flow through your organization to do the right things in every part of your business. Now, that whole SAP strategy and where we're going from an AI and a suite point of view and the cloud also reflects in how we're investing our money in the human capital management solutions. So you will find that roughly 90% of our investments are going into SAP SuccessFactors as the broad and depth and deep solution it is, but it also allows us to bring continuous innovation in a very fast way, like twice a year, and it allows us to really, rethink how HR plays a role within the entire business organization, for your organization and the business suite that we're providing. And of course, with the coming up of RISE, and we know that there's an installed base of customers that are running human capital management on-premise, we still are investing in human capital management for S/4HANA as an option, but that's just to keep the lights on. There's no real innovation. Of course, there's like improvements, but the real innovation, like for instance, AI, which is always the eye catcher, that comes in SuccessFactors. And SuccessFactors is actually leading the charge if it comes to business AI within SAP, just as a mindset. So if you're considering to move human capital management to the next level solution, and the investment strategy, why SAP is doing this is a very important one, because you know that if you're like investing in, well, let's say the strategic direction of SAP, you can expect innovations and continuous improvements. Interestingly, that leaves us with multiple options for customers to move to the cloud, right? And if you have the business suite or the ERP, the on-premise ERP version, and you had human capital management as part of that, then it's good to know that human capital management follows the same maintenance strategy as ERP. So if you're running towards, let's say, the end of mainstream maintenance for your ERP system, chances are that that also goes for HR. So looking at things in silos won't solve your problem, because the end of mainstream maintenance remains and you need to come up with something. Now, with our strategy and the fact that we don't want to leave any customer behind, theoretically, we have a number of options that you can choose from to, let's put your continuity up front. And that would be S/4HANA Human Capital Management for on-premise, but also Human Capital Management for S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition, and of course, SuccessFactors. But there is a very strict way of positioning this, because although the technological possibilities are there, it's not always the best solution for you going forward. And that's why we're actually zooming into the pros and cons. We're telling you about the strategic direction, because if you're expecting a lot of innovation, if you want to stay on premise, then that's not going to happen, because that innovation sits on the SuccessFactors side of the house. What we've seen thus far is that 90 to 95% of our customers can make that one step, can make the move to SuccessFactors in one step. Across organizational sizes, across regions, across industries, it's a consistent image what has been developing over the years. So SuccessFactors is not only the go-forward solution, it's also the solution that most of our customers, 90 to 95%, can do in one go. Of course, that's depending on your capability of change within your organization, but from a technical feasibility, it's possible. Sometimes we also see our customers that prioritize the ERP move, and then Human Capital Management shouldn't be an obstacle to do that big move, right? So that's why we also created Human Capital Management for S/4HANA in the Private Cloud Edition, in case there is an ERP-led motion that forces you to prioritize ERP, but you shouldn't leave HR behind, right? So, and therefore, you still have the option to do so. But as a standalone option, it usually never works, because then the business case doesn't add up, because that would mean that you would have to, let's say, calculate your infrastructure components and stuff like that just on HR, which usually is not the best business case. And for some industries, we totally understand that our customers, because of industry constraints or public tendering or government rules, cannot move to the cloud yet. Although that's still to come, we know, there are exceptions. And that's also how we look at things. So we don't leave any customers behind, but staying on premise is basically an exception, because it doesn't bring you the benefits that everybody needs going forward. Just a quick other view on, let's say, the technology component. So if you would stay on premise, so usually when we're actually engaging with I have Human Capital Management customers, on-premise customers, we also ask them about the pain points. Usually the pain points are, related to architecture, because it's very difficult to provide mobile. It's very difficult to provide self-service. It's cumbersome to change workflows and processes. It can be done, because we know you can work magic with the on-premise solution. It just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and therefore a lot of money. So if you stay on-premise, that stays the same. Those pain points don't go away. And well, there's actually some pain points that we want to look into in a minute. And also from a technological infrastructure, that remains the same. If you're moving to Human Capital Management for S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition, again, that might make sense if your ERP has, let's say, the lead in making the move, then your architectural constraints will remain the same. The infrastructure, that will be a service of SAP. But, if it's difficult now to create mobile applications or employee self-service, a manager self-service, or it takes too many clicks, that's not essentially going away with moving to the private cloud. So there's no innovation for Human Capital Management if you're moving to the Private Cloud Edition. And that is opposed to all the innovation that we're bringing to ERP. And that's one thing to really consider, because sometimes with all the innovations that are coming from an ERP side, we also expect it to be there on the human capital management side, but that's not the case. And on top of that, the scope will be a little bit less as well, but we'll touch on that in a moment. But if you look at SAP SuccessFactors as a public cloud service, then you see that the design principles are fundamentally different. And that allows you a lot of flexibility to be very granular and actually being able to adapt it in minutes, hours, instead of weeks or months. And that's where the actual, TCO reduction comes from. And that's also how you can consume innovations. And that's also how you always are on a clean core and can reduce your technical depth. So there's like an improvement on the architectural side. And of course, the infrastructure is on the side of SAP. So that's another consideration that I want you to, let's say, make when you're considering to move to your next generation human capital management solution, right? The first one was, what is the strategic direction of SAP? Where are we going to innovate? Where are we going to invest? And what can you expect? Then it's also good if you look at the technologies of choice. Yes, there is a technological option, but it doesn't solve a lot of pain points if you stay with human capital management in the private cloud or on-premise. It will have some benefits in terms of TCO if you're moving to RISE, but human capital management basically doesn't innovate there. Another thing that is good to consider, if you're looking at human capital management for S/4HANA, you can still do that, right? But it also comes with some simplification items next to some innovations. And the innovations are usually based on the performance, reporting, and some Fiori screens. But the simplification items are sometimes forgotten. And if you remember that slide with all the technological layers that I showed you, and we're just looking at human capital management, that there's one layer, the other layers will have an impact on your organization and how fast you are to respond, how much time it costs to actually adapt to it. And we'll get into that. Because if you look at the simplification items, you will see that, for instance, there is no employee interaction center here anymore. HCM processing forms will change. There will not be an Adobe component in it. The manager's desktop and the workforce viewer is changing. So, and some of these things are not in human capital management for S/4HANA anymore. Other things that are around in the periphery of human capital management are also changing. I already mentioned EIC. I already mentioned Adobe Interactive Forms, but also like the renewal landing pages. They will change. The alternative is the Fiori Launchpad. There is no NetWeaver portal because NetWeaver has an end of mainstream maintenance as well. And then you have to change that to WorkZone. BW, that has an end of mainstream maintenance as well. So what are you going to do with that? The content is still there, but for BW, Business Warehouse, for your analytics, you need to look at a solution as well. So these things also play an important role in considerations. So if you want to stay, let's say, with human capital management for S/4HANA, these are also impactful things that have an impact on your project and your scope and your time. Now, and if you then look at S/4HANA, human capital management for S/4HANA in the private cloud, you will see that there is a limited scope. So the scope is limited to core HR, payroll, and time. For all other processes that are talent related, SuccessFactors is the de facto standard solution. So if you have those processes running in your HCM on-premise and you're considering to move to RISE and the private cloud, then this is definitely something that you have to consider as well. There will be a project for some of the talent management related features and functions. Now, all that goes away, of course, if you're looking at SuccessFactors as human capital management solution. It's a very broad and deep solution in terms of functionality, but we also know that not always functionality, rules the world. It's also the avoidance of pain. It's the avoidance of maintenance and effort that actually makes it, a nicer solution, a better solution to use not just from a TCO point of view or a features and functions point of view or an experience point of view. Yes, all these things play a part, but also that you're in the strategic direction, so you can expect the innovations coming in there. And for instance, you can already see that Joule, our AI assistant, is very much part of the portfolio, and you can build that portfolio as and when you want, because these are modules. Now, we've seen our on-premise and customer base deploy and take their first steps into the cloud solutions. And we noticed that some customers, try to gauge the temperature of the water by adding talent management modules to their on-premise core HR and payroll system, which was, a very valid approach and a very valid way to go. But there's two things, right? So on-premise has an end of mainstream maintenance, so you have to decide something. And we also see that core HR has a profoundly different function in the organization than ever before. Before, it was like a back-end functionality. The back office was like working with it. It was like transactions, and it needed to be done as an hygienic factor. But what happened is that core HR more and more is like the spider in the web for all your data, not just going into talent management, but also that is the central data repository, your master data, for the downstream ERP processes. And with, let's say, the different design principles of Employee Central and the way we actually work with core HR and bring it in the hands of managers and employees, you're able to change your processes and actually drive the quality of your data management in your applications. And that's important, because if you have the right data management and data quality, then Business Data Cloud works better. Then your semantic layer can actually interpret that, and then your AI will actually, be the most value. So what we see is that with Employee Central, we can provide our customers a flexible global core HR system that actually, meets the expectations of employees and managers, but also allows you to manage your data in a consistent way, to do compliance, to do everything else downstream and upstream in your organization. So that's why, if you look at the strategy, if you look at the technological options, if you look at the experience that we have, that 90 to 95% of our customers can make that one step to SuccessFactors, we always recommend to, if you're considering to move to the cloud, at least start by bringing in Employee Central as your, let's say, core HR system and the hub for all your data in your organization. It will allow you to reap the benefits of the cloud, while at the same time, it also allows you to, let's say, shape your journey to the cloud however you like it. And that means that there might be, implementation timelines that keep on-premise payroll and time as they are. And that's fine, because we provide integrations to make it work. Although a lot of our customers can do that one step from a technological point of view, not everybody is ready for it in their organization. So to accommodate those timelines, you can, do it all in once, or there's a move to actually also do it in a hybrid way. As long as you get Employee Central in, start getting used to a cloud way of implementing, a cloud way of working, and then you can actually look at other components as and when you see fit. Now, how do you prepare for such a transition, right? Because sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable, maybe, because if you're coming from human capital management on-premise, you're used to what you can do. You're used to, customizing your info types. You can work magic with it. And SuccessFactors is a little bit different, of course. That's, a given, since SuccessFactors has been developed, let's say, 40 years later than human capital management on-premise. So there will be a different thinking about it. But that's fine, and we will support you in that. And sometimes we're also, talking to customers, and the customers say to us, yeah, I really liked your cloud story and I think we should go there, but we are highly customized. And I'm like, okay, well, show me the list of your customizations. How customized are you? And then usually it goes a little bit silent because the customizations have been created, let's say, for decades. The people haven't documented it right. The people are gone because there's a skills shortage now. And then it goes silent. But at the same time, that causes a little bit of anxiety of moving, right? So we did a number of things within the customer evolution program. So on the one hand, so I told you that we've been working with our on-premise installed base for years, and we've been listening to, okay, what would be an obstacle to move to the cloud? We've been addressing product gaps, for instance, that were perceived by some of our customers in on-premise. And being a cloud solution, we can actually do that super fast in the cloud. And we've been looking at how we can support every step of the cloud journey. And of course, we've also been working on commercial models to make that journey at least also attractive from a commercial point of view. Now, if we look at the product investments that we did in the last, I don't know, years, then you can see that the core HR proposition has grown tremendously over the last years and very fast. So if you looked at it like 2 years ago, I would advise you to look at it again because it's completely different. What we've done and what we're still doing is we keep investing in cloud core HR to close local gaps like local benefits in the US or some localizations. So that is, let's say, the gaps that were perceived like years ago, they've been reduced tremendously. What we've been really working hard on in the last couple of years is to get to functional parity for time tracking, because that was a big hindrance for customers that were running time tracking or time management in on-premise, did a very painful and lengthy implementation, and they're now a little bit like, oh, well, it works, so let's not touch it. But there is an alternative, and the alternative is SuccessFactors time tracking. It's easier to implement, so it doesn't take that long implementation timelines that you had before in on-premise, and it's there, but it's there for your comparison as well. So I would certainly take a look at that and see where we are in terms of functional parity before you actually start making the move. Then, as I mentioned, there's like a hybrid option available, right? So you move to Employee Central, but you want to keep your payroll and time as it is for now because you're on a higher enhancement pack, so you still have a couple of years to go, or you're going to move a payroll and time with your ERP RISE. That's fine. But then, the data integrations have been there for years and they're solid. But you also want to have a process integration so you know what's going where and how far it is in the workflows. So we created that too as the interim solution for the hybrids to give you time and to facilitate the journey how you want to shape it. And of course, we've been doing a lot in payroll innovation. And we'll touch on payroll a little bit, but payroll in SuccessFactors is the same engine as it is in Private Cloud Edition, is the same engine as it is in Human Capital Management for S/4HANA on-premise, and it's the same engine as it always been in Human Capital Management on-premise. Yes, there's differences in the service model. That's definitely true. And for this year, during Success Connect, we've also announced that there will be a code split for Employee Central payroll versus the rest of the payroll. So it's the proven engine, but together with Employee Central, it allows you to restructure your processes. So we can also drive, for instance, continuous payroll processing, and we can drive artificial intelligence to explain the payslip, for instance. That kind of innovation is taking place in Employee Central Payroll, which is part of SuccessFactors, and it's another illustration of how the investment strategy actually starts to diverge. Now, I already mentioned this, so I will briefly touch on it. The payroll innovation, the time functional parity. If you haven't taken a look at it, and it is something that's on your mind, please take a look at it because it's solid, it's there, And especially for time tracking, for instance, we already have 1 million users using it, from small companies for large international companies. So it's there. And that's, for most of our customers, a relief to actually notice. Then from a customer evolution point of view, we're supporting our customers at every step of the cloud transformation. And human capital management is like conforming itself to the steps we're also doing on the ERP side or other lines of businesses. So for every phase that you're in, we have tools, assets, services sometimes that can support you. And I know we're SAP, so there's a lot of information, and therefore this presentation could be used as a reference, a future reference, so you can actually find it. I've also included some QR codes, so if you see something that you like, you can also, use the QR codes to immediately get to it, so you don't have to, well, let's say, search for it. Now, if we look at the discover and prepare phase, so you're considering to move to the cloud, right? What would you want to do? Well, you want to hear what the experts were saying. You want to look at some third-party validated research, but also you want to kind of, know what's in it for you. So that's why we also provide you with Gartner and Volkswagen grids to actually, start building your own vision. We have, of course, customer references, but we've also did a study with a third party, with an external agency, the Enterprise Strategy Group, to interview customers and then use their industry benchmarks to see what the value would be of moving from on-premise to the cloud. And since and that has been reflected in a white paper that's there for you to download, to read on a rainy Sunday afternoon, to make up your mind, to see what's, on top of mind in terms of the considerations, what other customers have experienced, but also what Enterprise Strategy Group has noticed from their benchmark in the market. Together with the Enterprise Strategy Group, we've also created a ROI calculator. And this ROI calculator is a great first step in trying to identify what a move from on-premise to the cloud would actually bring you in terms of potential ROI. And although this is published on the SAP.com, so it's using list prices and averages and stuff like that, it will give you a good view on the components that are important to take that first step into creating your business case. And you can, do it in a very simple way, like putting in 4 data fields, but you can also tweak it a little bit more to your organization by adding 21 other data fields. So there is, let's say, flexibility there, but it gives you a really good view on the components that you have to consider. It's not just the data fields. It's not just PNOM. It is a lot more that actually that you have to take into account. It goes in hardware, infrastructure, maintenance, implementation, that kind of thing. A good first glance of how to create your business case before you actually start, creating your project. Then, of course, you want to explore what your current system actually looks like. And that's why we've created the readiness check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions. And I will come to that in a minute. But that will give you a great MRI scan of your current on-premise installation. And you can discover how much customization is there, how much the customizations or the custom configuration is actually being used, what kind of integrations are there, that kind of thing. It takes away the anxiety of not knowing. This gives you a very detailed view on that. And then there's also workshops where you can engage with the SAP experts one-on-one. Ask any question you want. And also we will do a readout of that readiness check, for instance, for you, because someone needs to look at the MRI scan and then, compare it with where do you want to go? What do we see? What do we flag? You could say that SAP or our partners can be used as the radiologist interpreting the results of your MRI scan together with you to flag things, to, simplify your conversion and your data migration. But it's something that we want to do together with you. And then, of course, there's architectural leading practices and implementation design principles. That's for your architects to make an informed decision and a timely decision before you go into the actual project. Because sometimes, practical questions are, well, let's say, very valid, and you need to, let's say, validate what the solution would be. Based on real-life implementations, together with product management, we've created these documents for your people to get educated. Excuse me. So I already mentioned the readiness check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions. And I think it's good to understand that this is a free self-service tool. So you can run it, you can upload it in the dashboard and start your analysis. It would help to include, your partner or someone from SAP to interpret them. But it's a great first way, and documentation that comes out of it is like tremendous. There's notes, so we will share the slide decks after this webinar, but there's a note that you can actually go into and then prepare for that readiness check. What I want to say as one remark is that although it's named the SAP Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions, it doesn't matter if you're also looking at it from an S/4HANA point of view, because it's basically the readiness check for human capital management solutions, because it's taking a snapshot of your current on-premise environment. So it gives a load of information wherever you go, but it will take away the anxiety of moving to SAP SuccessFactors, because what we've seen is that 95%, 98% of the customizations in on-premise are basically not customizations and can be placed into the standard of the cloud solutions, because the cloud solutions are super flexible and cater for a lot of things in the standard way. I've already mentioned the Customer Evolution Kit. That's a series of workshops that we can actually deep dive into your questions, your pain points, specific to your organization. And we would also do a readout together with you for the readiness check. Now, for some of you might say, well, I don't want to look at this just standalone for human capital management. And that's a great way of thinking, because you shouldn't look at things in silos. You can, but it would make more sense to actually look at it from an ERP move together with HR move. And we have an evolution kit for that as well. So that's a series of workshops with SAP experts. You can ask us anything, and we'll guide you through the options, the pros and cons, and get you to, let's say, a readiness check readout, but also, how your future landscape would look like, or what you could do in terms of the implementation or deployment options. It's a great way of getting your questions answered before you start the project, and it's a great way to invite more stakeholders and get them all on the same page in one go. It's awesome. And well, let's say we already touched on the architectural leading practices and the implementation design principles, right? Now, if you've done all the work, you've done the preparation, you made up your mind, you've used the tools, so you got a good view, you know what you want to do. Okay, what then? You want to move. What else does SAP have for you to actually, optimize your move or ease your move? Well, first of all, if you decide to go to Employee Central or SuccessFactors, then you get what we call embedded lounge activities. You get a demo environment, which has pre-configuration. So based on that, you can actually show and tell, and then look at, okay, this is the pre-configuration. Why wouldn't it work? And it's important to do it like that, right? Because it's a totally different way of implementing than, for instance, your on-premise system. So cloud implementations go in iterations. So there's a lot of pre-configured content. And then what you do is you kind of show what the pre-configured content is. And in 3 iterations, you will get to the final configuration, which is a completely different mindset as, let's say, blueprinting and workshopping. And then someone goes off, builds it, comes back, and then you have to test it. And you come to the conclusion that it wasn't exactly as we discussed. So this way is super efficient, It's very clear, but it also focuses on why wouldn't this work for you? And that's an interesting one because we've seen that you can do everything with the cloud solution, right? It's really flexible, but some customers go in and implement a cloud solution with an on-premise mindset. And that is a recipe for failure. So a lot of the success for a cloud implementation is also based into, well, let's say the cloud mindset. So if you're willing to think differently, then it will yield the best benefits for you. The lowest TCOs, the fastest innovation, that kind of thing. But if you want to, rebuild your on-premise system in cloud technology, you can do that as well. But it's not a great way, and it's definitely not getting to a success and providing you the value after all that a cloud solution could deliver you. So in terms of the cloud mindset, I think it's good to realize, and it's also good to address it during the preparation phase of your project. And that's why we have the implementation design principles. That's why we have the architectural leading practices. So you get educated before you actually make the implementation decisions. But it's good to keep that in mind. It's the cloud mindset that makes all the difference in terms of the success of your implementation. And then, of course, if you have that cloud mindset, you also realize that change management is a big thing in your project. It's not the technology that is the big bottleneck. It's usually the change management in the cloud mindset. So that's why we have embedded launch activities. You get this demo instance to actually work with, and you can actually see and experience it. Then a lot of our customers that want to start to implement a new HR system also want a process description or start from a process description. And again, you don't have to start from scratch because we've described the leading processes in the SAP process library that is available through Signavio. And we've done that already years ago, and it's evolved and expanded, and it's a very solid starting point that describes the processes as we see them. You can use them as a starting point, but these processes are also the basis for the pre-configuration that we're delivering, for instance, in the embedded launch activities, or with the best practices that you can immediately upload. So it's all consistent and it's all documented, and you can use it as a starting point. So again, you're not starting from scratch, which makes it a tremendous accelerator for if you're going forward. And then, of course, the data migration and the conversion. Now, SAP has tools for that, but there's also partner tools for that, and we'll look into that. So I told you about the embedded launch activities and the fact that you actually get a demo instance that you can work from. It's at no additional cost if you have the license, and the link is included in the deck so you can explore it a little bit more. I also told you about the leading practice, the process libraries that we have available in Signavio. And again, that comes with your licenses, and you don't have to start from scratch. And these form the basis for implementations and stuff like that, right? Now, we have migration tools from an SAP point of view. And if you're planning to move HR with ERP to the private cloud, then you could use the ERP tooling. The thing is, if you're using that, then your HR migration is also depending on the bigger ERP migration. So there's like more agile tools available to actually look at human capital management if you'd like to do so. And we have them from an SAP point of view, and they're good, solid tools that are also, supported by product management. But we also see that there's like partners for us in the market that have tools that do the job and make it possible to controllable and manageable do your migrations and conversions, and they even help doing the conversions. So we would definitely also look into these partner tools, because these are technology tools that are available through the SAP store. But these partners are also, because they're technology partners, they're also working with a lot of service and integration partners, and that are actually using these tools to facilitate your migration. So you can buy these tools yourself, or you could contract a partner that is using these tools, but just be assured that it's not a new implementation. If you're going from core HR and payroll to Employee Central and Employee Central payroll, payroll is payroll is payroll, so you don't have to do a re-implementation unless you want to, but you can do it in a migration style. And then it's not a matter of months, but then it's a matter of weeks that you can actually do the migration. So that's good to understand, and it's also good to know before you're going into your project preparation, right? And as I said, so we have the leading practices, the process library, we have them uploaded as predefined content, but also we have that as a consistent way of, for instance, implementing best practices for a specific country, for a specific module. So if you're running Employee Central, you can actually deploy those best practices through Upgrade Center. Again, a profound difference than when you're looking at the on-premise way of working. Excuse me. And on top of that, of course, we're looking to integrate everything in the same tool chain that SAP is using, right? So the process flow, the test scripts, the tutorials, the configuration workbooks, they're all also published in Cloud Application Landscape Manager. If you might already be using that for your bigger ERP deployment, then know that the SuccessFactors HR Human Capital Management content is also available there to structure your implementation and structure your project, but also follow up in a later stage if you're already running your application and you want to innovate. So I think, especially for this webinar, it's important to focus on the considerations, on the questions that you have and how do you get them answered. And then looking at some of the things that might cause anxiety, like your current customizations or your current installation, or how do you move your data and your configuration. It's all been taken care of, right? And then, when you're also running, I think the most important thing to realize is that this is not a one-time implementation, and it's not a one and done. Because we're innovating so fast, like 2 times a year, you get new versions and stuff like that. The market around you is changing that fast. So you need to keep up to speed, right? And if you want to keep getting the value out of your application, I think that's also something to consider, how you set up your governance structure to consume those innovations, but also get it adopted by the people in your organization, by your managers, by your employees. Now, for that, we're following the same integrated tool chain that you see all across SAP. So if you're looking at SAP Signavio Process Intelligence, we can actually use Signavio when you have deployed, when you have installed, or when you went live with your initial implementation of SuccessFactors, for instance. We urge you to revisit it, like after 1 or 2 years, to see, okay, how does this compare to, let's say, the ideal process using Signavio, to see where you can optimize or what's being used or not. So for process optimization, that is something, that's a tool that can actually drive value for you, for years to come. If you're using Lean IX, then you're looking at the entire, let's say, IT landscape. So not just human capital management, but in conjunction with the rest of your applications, but also what business drivers HR is actually achieving with using some of the modules, and how you can, keep that up to date, but also you can also check your business drivers and if you're still delivering value with that, or if you need some additions or maybe not. And then, of course, it's super important that your employees and managers actually adopt the solution. Interestingly, like
we've been talking to on-premise customers that have deployed employee self-service and manager self-service. And then, we get into a conversation. And yeah, we have all these self-service scenarios. Yes. Okay. And then my next question would be, are they being used? And then it's like, well, not really, because it's like sometimes it's 12 to 20 clicks to get to where I want to, and then people are not using it. Now, that's a common thing, unfortunately, in on-premise, right? But the same goes if you don't instruct your people and if you don't make it easy for them to keep using it, the adoption will be less than optimal. And if you want to derive your optimal value, you want people to use it. So that's also why we look at, for instance, WalkMe to be part of the solution. So you can actually have a guided experience for your employees, for your managers, so they keep using the processes that they may not use every day. But you don't want to forget that. You don't want them to forget how to use the process. So there can WalkMe play an important part. And I already mentioned, Cloud ALM, but also Upgrade Center to consume the innovations. Because every customer in the cloud is on the same code base if it comes to SuccessFactors. So it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to consume the innovations. But everybody is on the same version. So, and that's where Upgrade Center plays a role, because you can just click on what kind of innovation you want to activate, and then you're good to go. But it's optional. But we always urge you to take a look at it, look at the impact analysis that come with it, and then decide whether or not it's for you. But it's there, and it allows you to continuously consume the innovations. So, as a wrap-up, I think it's a lot of information, and I hope it was like in a pace that it's still doable and you can follow it. And I hope it brought you new nuggets of information that you can take into consideration in your move to the cloud. If I'm going to summarize, I think the end of mainstream maintenance is an important, let's say, compelling argument, not just from an ERP point of view, but chances are that end of mainstream maintenance has the same date for your human capital management solution. So look at these things in conjunction. The strategic direction of SAP is cloud. Now, there is a profound difference in the private cloud for ERP versus human capital management. In ERP, there's a load of innovation coming your way. For human capital management, that is not the case. And it's also a limited scope. So that's one of the things to consider. And you can also see that the strategic direction in terms of the investments that SAP is doing are going towards the public cloud solutions, ergo SuccessFactors. So if you want to keep your options open towards the future, if you want to deliver to your internal organization in a fast way and in a better and engaging way than you could ever do before, then that's something to keep in mind. In order to ease that transition, SAP has delivered significant product investment in the SAP SuccessFactors suite over the last decade or so. And we've accelerated that in the last 5 years to close the perceived gaps that some customers might have in terms of functionalities, features, and functions. It doesn't always mean that the data models are the same, but you can achieve the same outcomes with a different application. Then the recommendation from our side would always be to at least implement Employee Central, to reap the benefits of the cloud in a fast way, in a controlled way, in a way that actually makes a difference in your organization and allows you to be more flexible, whereas it can still function as a solid hub for your downstream and upstream ERP processes. But 90 to 95% of our customers can do it in one go. But that's very much depending on your capability to change your implementation roadmap. And that's what we understand, that every customer has a different journey. So therefore, we provide these flexible deployment options. And the pros and cons we've discussed, but there's more detail to it if you want to discuss, of course. But you can shape your migration strategy in a way that fits your organization. Now, for that, we also support you with tools, the ROI calculator, the readiness check, the Evo kits, 2-in-1, or the standalone human capital management, the assets that we provide, the services around it with embedded launch activities, the pre-configuration. So you don't have to start from scratch. And sometimes it might seem a little bit overwhelming, but I hope that, with structuring it like this in this presentation, I hope you get a little bit of guidance on where to find it, use the QR code. And I would certainly, if you've not done it already, suggest that you run a readiness check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions. It will give you a great overview of your current on-premise installation, and it is a great food for thought if you are discussing it with HRIT, IT, HR, to get everybody on the same page, but also get rid of the anxiety to move. And you will discover that a lot of the things that you think are very customized will be standard in the next generation solutions, and specifically SAP SuccessFactors. So take that first step and start your journey to the cloud today. And with that, I've come to the end of today's presentation. Steve, were there any questions in the chat that we need to address?
Yeah,
there were a couple of questions, Wim, that came in the chat. They were both about payroll and migration of payroll. Questions about whether customers should lift and shift from ECC to SuccessFactors, or whether they should deploy greenfield. Clearly, the recommendation is that for a customer with a running payroll system, better to avoid greenfield and take advantage of partner capabilities to lift and shift configuration from either on-prem or private cloud to SuccessFactors public cloud. That's a very well-established move with a high ROI, and those acceleration capabilities from TIK and others, very powerful. So we've answered that. The other question is it hard to move given that or how can the payroll engine be the same for EC payroll and for HCM? And while the schema are the same for payroll, there are differences in core HR. And so many customers first move core HR and then look at uptime and payroll move sequentially if they're not willing to do it all in one. So that's what we call core hybrid mode, when they move core HR to the cloud before they've moved time and payroll. And that's a very mainstream migration sequence for the larger and more complex customers. So great questions, just two of them. They came in through chat.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, we are a bit over time. So do we have any other questions from the audience? If yes, now it's the time to put your questions in the chat. Okay, I guess that's a no. So next week we will have the next session on the HCM move again with you, Wim, and there we will have a more detailed view on the HCM migration with the help of the SAP Readiness check. So with that, I see no other questions in the chat. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Wim, for the session today. And looking forward to seeing you all next week, Tuesday, same time, same location. With that, let me